I'm about to fan fold this amazing drapery. And because it has this really cool, I kind of see little blue flames in this pattern. So I'm going to call them blue flames. And because of the pattern, it's going to make it a little easier to fan fold without measuring every single pleat. I'm still going to be measuring a little bit, but I'm going to have some other tools to help me wrangle this large panel. It's 4 widths in black outlined, and it's pretty long, 117 3/4 long, and it's all finished. Side hems are done, corners are stitched, pleats are marked at the top in the header, corners are stitched at the top, and I'm going to use some clothespins to help control these folds too, because this fabric gets really tall and eventually the clamps don't fit anymore around the stack, but it's going to help us get started. So the first step to get your fan folding going is to find the first pleat. So this is my overlap. That means that this is a right panel. If we turn around and look at the way this will hang on the wall, this is the leading edge, so that's my overlap, 4 inches, and the return is on the far right side of this panel. That makes it a right panel, and I'm going to be putting a little tag on it that says right, just so the installers know at a quick glance which one it is. So anyway, you want to take the first 2 pins that indicate a pleat and match them up, and then measure from that fold to the edge of the overlap right there. And that is 7 inches. And then you'll lay it on the table with those 2 pins lined up right there. And then I'm going to take that clamp, and this is like having another person here. If you're doing this by yourself, find a clamp. They make bigger ones that I need to go purchase, but for now this is going to get me going. But if you have 2 people, the one person would stay at the top and they would hold this down, and the second person would be at the bottom and they would find that same 7 inches down at the bottom. So from here to there is 7 inches, and I just put my thumb there, and then I can grab it, pinch it, and then turn it and fold it over. And then I'd like to double check that measurement, because sometimes depending where you grab, you might grab too much or not enough. So I just verify that I have 7 inches there. And then if this was a solid, I could measure that 7 inches to make sure I have the right amount, and I can feel where the side is right here underneath because of the bulk, and it's a little bit bigger than 7, so I just make an adjustment and it's 7. But because this is a pattern, I don't really have to do that by measuring. I can just look at the pattern. So I like to come back to the top for reference and see which flame I'm looking at. So I'm going to look for this one. There it is again, and there it is again, and again, and again. And after a while, you get used to finding certain patterns. For me, anyway, I like to see how fast I can find the pattern. It's kind of a game, kind of makes it fun. So you see this one keeps coming up almost every other flame, and then you just make your adjustments. So that's something with every fold. You want to make sure that the lining follows and comes all the way into that fold. And that's something that by clamping it at each end, that helps the lining come with it. So now on to the next one. I'm going to again match up the 2 pins for the next pleat. So this is the first pleat, and then there's a space, and then the next section of pins marks the next pleat. So I could measure, I don't have to, but I could, just to have a kind of a a ballpark of where to go to at the bottom. And that mark is 9 5/8. But if I just wanted to follow the pattern, I can just fold this over, clamp it down, and then follow the pattern all the way down. But it is a kind of a small pattern, and you could get a little bit, tired of looking for each little flame. So just to get it kind of started down at the bottom, I'll take that measurement 9 5/8 and then clamp that down. And again, if you pull a little bit, making sure that your lining is the same amount of lining is with the same amount of face fabric, and then I can feel that it's in there. And just by giving it a little shake here and there, by doing this, the air flow underneath gets the lining all laying nice and flat. And you could quickly feel whether or not it's all the way in there or not. And then you would make your adjustments. And so now that I have the top and bottom clamped, again, I'm going to look for whatever pattern is at the top. This one matches this one. There's two of those. So it's this guy. And I'll just make sure that that particular flame follows all the way down. And by doing this, it's going to train the drapery while it's waiting for install day. It's going to train it to hang just right. And so I just made that little adjustment down at the hem so that that same flame is all the way up. And now I'm also making sure the bottom didn't move around too much. And so because I have these little flames to kind of check, I'm going to put a couple of clothespins here and there to keep the folds right where I want them. And then as we go, obviously these clothespins only grab so much fabric. I can do a couple more in a couple different areas just to keep everything in order. So I'm gonna just keep going. And that number, that 9 5/8 from the last pleat, should also be the same on this one. Clamp the top, come down to the bottom, just get that 9 5/8 as a starting point. And then after I check all the flames, all the blue flames, we'll see if that was just the right amount at the bottom, and if not, we'll make the adjustment. Okay, so now we have a different flame here. And again, it doesn't take long to find that new pattern. Some are harder to see than others, but just give your eyes a second to focus and look at the different shapes and make sure you're on track. And this one is good. I don't have to make any adjustment. And so now I could even, I've been clipping at the top first, but now that I know that this measurement is about 9 5/8, and I'm already down here, I could save a couple steps and just start at the bottom and then go clamp the top. And see, I'm always making adjustments and keeping this flat down at the bottom. That helps the lining stay put. And so up here, just grab the next pleat, and you see how, I don't know if you saw, I'll do it again. The bottom is already clamped. It's like there's another person down there. And so I can just grab this fold, and look how nicely that fold comes all the way over. Pretty much top to bottom, the whole thing came with. And so now I just make sure that the lining is in there and that I'm on the right flame. And so probably that's still fitting around, this clamp is still fitting around all these folds. There's 4 folds. The next one, I'm gonna have to start some new clamps, some new clothespins. But these are helping to keep everything organized and orderly. And I'm just gonna make the slightest little bit of an adjustment right here and reclamp it. And I think I'm gonna do the same thing and start the next one right here, since I'm here. Sometimes I put pins at the bottom. I'm gonna take those out right now so I don't poke myself, and they're not needed anymore. You don't wanna have pins in your draperies when they're hanging at the customer's house and the installer might poke himself. Okay, so that's 5 5/8. Give that a little shake. That really helps bring the lining over. Clamp it down. Come back to the top and find your next pleat. Match up the pins and then pull towards yourself, towards your body as you're folding it over. That helps get the fold to cooperate. That's another little trick I subconsciously do now. So, and same thing at the bottom. If this is clamped, if you pull away from the drape at the bottom, it's going to help pull this over and keep the lining with it. I don't want to put another fold in that clip, so I'm just going to start a new one in another area with the top 2 pleats. Folds. Up there it's a pleat, here it's a fold. And this is the one. There was too much folded over because I'm looking for this one. So I have to pull it out, and it's already in the right spot down here. And I usually keep the iron on and hot and ready to press out any wrinkles. And so I would be doing that right now at this point if there was any wrinkles, but this fabric is almost wrinkle proof because there's no wrinkles in it. So it's really nice to work with. But that's when I would iron out any wrinkles, is at this point while the fabric is flat on the table. If there was wrinkles in it, I would iron it right here and then fold it over. And I don't ever press the folds. These are just going to train themselves, and sometimes they get a crease in them, which can be steamed out on installation, but I do not crease them at this point. I just try to keep them soft. So I'm trying to keep all these pins lined up right here. Try to stack up all those pins. These are the pleats and these are the spaces over here. Spaces go to the back, pleats go to the front. Unless you're doing an inverted box pleat, that would be the exception. I actually really enjoy this part of the drapery process because I feel accomplished and like I'm almost finished, even though I still have to stitch all the pleats and tack them. At this point, it feels like it's almost finished. And it starts looking like a finished drapery. And sometimes once you start getting a nice stack here, if you put some weight on it, it helps to keep that stack a little shorter because it gets a little tall. And then as this stacks up at the bottom, it might start to grow because, I'm kind of walking this way, adjusting it. So that means that up at the top, it's stacking up at an angle rather than being even up here. So if you give it a little tug up here, then you'll be even again at the bottom. Okay, so now I'm getting to a point where this clamp is almost too small to fit around this stack down here. So what I've been doing to hold it down, which it's not as good, but it's another option, is I'm just going to pin right there, just to hold that in place. So I can't pull as hard at the top with this little pin in here, but at least it'll hold it in place while I get this fold all set. Obviously the top part is not pleated yet, so I'm not going to tie that up. We want to leave that free so that we can stitch the pleats at the machine. And even one at this point right here is going to be in the way of sewing the pleats, so I'll end up taking this one out once I get ready to pleat it, but I want to put one there just to keep everything together until I'm ready to sew the pleats. I'm trying to just make sure all the pleats are stacked up as I'm folding, and then I would tie it not too tight but not too loose. And so that's how I do it, about every 18 inches or so. And then once the pleats are stitched and tacked and everything and hooked, then I would put one more tie around the pleats and then one around the bottom hem, just to help get that nice and tight. So the one around the hem, I do like that one a little tighter than around the body. And that really helps train all of those pleats at the hemline.